Okay, we've got a different one today. You might consider this an educational video, but we've got a guy that I'm sure many of you have seen. Video came out this week. He was in a car with his dog, and he kept spouting all kinds of the soft sit stuff, and they finally arrested him and had to take his poor dog somewhere. So anyway, this is my reaction to another soft sits reaction to this soft sits video. So hang in there, sit back, relax, and let's go.
Man, what do you need to give me a warning for, sir?
You don't have proper registration on your vehicle.
502.003, registration by political subdivision is prohibited.
He needs your driver's license upon request.
A driver's license? Am I driving under commerce?
Yes, sir. You were driving down the road. You were pulled over.
I was traveling freely, man.
And it pretty much says what I've been saying since the 90s, and everyone says I'm crazy, but just recently everyone's jumping on this driving versus traveling thing.
Okay, let's start out by putting this right to travel or commerce. Let's put that to bed in the Texas courts. Texas courts have been addressing their licensing and registration laws for over a half a century, going back to 1953, Galt'S versus Department of Safety. What'd they say? Fundamental in consideration of this contention and other points attacking the constitutionality of the act is the settled principle that a license or permit to drive an automobile on the public highways and streets is a privilege and not property or a property right. And this privilege is subject to reasonable regulations under the police power. That's the 10th Amendment, in the interest of public safety and welfare. Then again, it started creeping up, like this guy says that he wants to spread the word, as you'll soon hear. Yeah, well, it's been spread, and it started back up in 1996 with Tharp v. State. And the nature of the interest and the rights that a licensee has in a driver's license and has been addressed by Texas courts for almost a half a century. And they just basically quote what Galt'S quoted and decided in that case. And then we go about another 10 years, and we're starting to get into the right to travel type stuff that people are claiming now, and this guy's claiming here in Yanai Fountain Hawkins v. State. And this guy argued it's unconstitutional because the right of the citizen to travel is not a mere privilege which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common right, which he has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Appellate seems to make a distinction between the use of public road for gain or monetary purpose and the use for personal, non-economic travel, arguing that travel for economic gain is a privilege, while use for personal travel is a right. Now, where have we heard that shit? It's all over the internet. Well, here's what the reality is in Texas, and really the other states as well. We disagree with appellant's underlying proposition that driving a motor vehicle for personal purposes is a constitutionally protected right rather than a state-granted privilege. Requiring current license plates as a condition of operating a motor vehicle on the state's highways is a proper subject of the state's police power. Again, that is the 10th Amendment, so it's constitutional. Mr. Doofuses out there. Then in 2009, it was again challenged by this guy. Driving an automobile on the Texas highways is a privilege, the court says, thus regulating licensing, inspection, and registration laws and requiring proof of financial responsibility as a protection for Texas citizens is a proper subject of the state's police power and not a denial of due process. Commercial vehicle is also defined in Section 502.001. Had the legislature intended Section 502.402 apply only to persons operating in motor vehicles, it would have used the term commercial motor vehicle in place of the more inclusive term motor vehicle. Are all the doofuses out there in Texas listening to this? If not, you should. This is the type of stuff you should be spreading instead of your bullshit. Then it even gets more recent, 2016. Leverson v. State. In asserting that the court lacked personal jurisdiction, appellant claims he was not engaged in any regulated activity governed by the regulatory code known as the Transportation Code, because he was neither actively nor passively engaged in commerce or commercial activity, and was not engaged in the movement of goods, property, passengers, or people for compensation or hire. Where have we heard this bullshit before? All over the internet. And of course, this guy has to make up his own definitions for the terms of vehicle, motor vehicle, driver, operator, and this state is used in the Transportation Code. And the court told him his application or misapplication of them with which he was charged. All the state was required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt were the elements of each offenses which did not include engaging in transportation. He says transportation means commerce. Court said, bullshit, son. Then we're getting into February 9th, 2018. Perkins was a very busy guy. I guess he must be the king of Texas offsets, because he was arrested on a number of related charges over the last 5 years, and he kept arguing that there was a requirement of commercial consent, and therefore he is not subject to the laws. The court said, well, leaving aside how nonsensical this argument is, the court's analysis need go no further than the very first assertion, that to be regulated under the Transportation Code, one must assert commercial consent. In other words, the court says he is asserting that he has a constitutional right to choose whether to be bound by the laws. However, it should go without saying that consent is not required for a person to be bound by the law. You get that, all these offsets that say, I do not consent, I do not consent. And even if consent were somehow required, a driver consents by the simple expedient of using a public road. No more is required. You get that? Nothing more is required for the traffic laws to apply to you than for you to be operating a vehicle on the public roads. That's it. You don't even need a driver's license. If you don't have one and you're driving, they still apply to you. If you're from Mars and you happen to be using the roads, they still apply to you. Then we go into 2019. Now, this is a Fifth Circuit case. That's a little bit higher up. And it notes that the Supreme Court ruled long ago that states may regulate the operation of all motor vehicles that drive within their borders and may require the registration of such vehicles and the licensing of their drivers pursuant to their constitutionally protected police power. That's the 10th Amendment again. There you go. And it says Texas law is very straightforward. Quote, the owner of a motor vehicle registered in this state may not operate or permit the operation of the vehicle on the public highways until the owner applies for title and registration of the vehicle. Moreover, drivers may not operate a motor vehicle on the highways in this state unless the person holds a driver's license and must display the license on the demand of a peace officer. So there you go. And now we're getting into even 2022. So this is very recent. And this guy's the same thing. Of course, he quotes from the U.S. Constitution, the Texas Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bible, various dictionary statutes, and case law. Who does that? Sovereign citizens, of course. He argues that he was not driving when the traffic stop occurred and that a motor vehicle definition does not apply to his pickup. He claims that a motor vehicle operator is not required to have a driver's license without the driver's consent to be bound by the laws of Texas is an oft-rejected argument that is blatantly incorrect. Of course, we know it is. This claim is equally frivolous. The Supreme Court established long ago that states may regulate the operation of all motor vehicles that drive within their borders, including the licensing and registration of drivers pursuant to their constitutionally protected power. This is the case, people, the case that's set for all times, that the states can require everybody who uses the public roads for any reason, they can require them to be regulated, licensed, insurance, and registration. That is Hendrick v. Maryland from 1915. And then even a newer case from 2022. Oh, here's Perkins again. And, of course, he's saying that the state presented no proof of transportation, consent, vehicle, yada, yada, because the word transportation refers exclusively to commercial activity. That's what this doofus is saying, and that's what all these doofuses in Texas saying. But this court and others, the court says, have consistently rejected Perkins' arguments that the Texas Transportation Code statutes, including the laws requiring a driver's license and registration, financial responsibility or liability insurance, and license plates, apply only to commercial activity and only by consent. We have previously addressed and rejected some of the same issues Perkins presents here, including his renewed complaints that entirely the Transportation Code is unconstitutional as applied to him. So there you go. The driver's license, the right to travel, the registration. The right to travel has nothing to do with motor transportation. It just means you can go from one state to the other and back again and all over the country, and nobody can stop you and ask you for your papers if you're just, enjoying yourself and not breaking any laws. So we know that to be a fact. So as you can see, soft sits, tell soft sits, tell soft sits, tell soft sits, and none of them ever research case law or the law. So that takes care of this. Now let's go to this statute he's talking about and see
And please, please, please let this catch fire, because if Americans found out they didn't need a license or license plates to travel the country freely without government intervention, the whole system might collapse. And then, all right, Texas Transportation Code 502.003. Current through the 87th Legislature, third called session, Section 502.003, registration by political subdivision. Echo, what is a political subdivision?
I have a few definitions for political subdivision in the context of military. 1. Any county or parish. 2. Except that where registration for voting is not conducted under the supervision of a county or parish. 3. The term shall include any other subdivision of a state which conducts registration for voting. Did that answer your question?
I guess.
Thanks for your feedback.
So, any county or parish, it seems like.
Okay, I'm going to do a little better than Mr. Doofus's artificial intelligence that he asked the question of what is a political subdivision. Well, a political subdivision are local governments created by the states to help fulfill their obligations. And these political subdivisions include counties, cities, towns, villages, and special districts such as school districts, water districts, park districts, and airport districts. State governments establish the procedures and requirements for requesting city charters, such as dictating a minimum population. They also determine which functions city governments can perform. Today, modern cities provide services ranging from police protection and recycling to elevator inspection. They nevertheless remain divisions of the state and operate under state law. So this state law, this guy keeps parroting, simply says and tells the cities and towns and villages, political subdivisions, that you cannot charge people or require people to get a driver's license from you or register their car with you. We're the state. That's our job. That's our purview. So you cannot, no political subdivision can make you buy one of their driver's license or pay to have your car registered with them. What these political subdivisions can do is they can charge extra fees or extra licenses for business, for people who want to conduct business using the roads, such as taxis and buses and trucks and such as that. So that's all this says. So this is what happens when a Mr. Soft-Sit doofus asks artificial intelligence to try to gain some knowledge. This is also what happens when one soft-sit informs another soft-sit of how things should happen. So there you go. It's very simple.
And here it is. Except as provided by subsection B, which we will get to, a political subdivision of this state may not require an owner of a motor vehicle to 1. Register the vehicle, 2. Pay a motor vehicle registration fee, or 3. Pay an occupational tax or license fee in connection with motor vehicle. And then here's B, which I've been saying forever. This section does not affect the authority of municipality to license and regulate the use of a motor vehicle for compensation or commercial activity within the municipal limits and impose a permit for fee or street rental charge for the operation of each motor vehicle used to transport passengers for compensation other than the motor vehicle operating under a registration certificate from the department or a permit from the Federal Surface Transportation Board. A fee or charge under subsection B may not exceed 2% of the annual gross receipts from the vehicle. This section does not impair the payment provisions of an agreement of franchise between a municipality and the owners or operators of such motor vehicle used to transport the passengers for compensation. And in Part A is very clear.
Yeah, he says it's very clear, but it's not clear enough for a doofus to understand. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back with another shortly.
Go home, folks.